Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back Francisco Torres. He's an interventional physiatrist, and today's Kevin MD article is an excerpt from his new book. The excerpt is titled The Key to Longevity, Fitness, Mindset, and Nutrition. The book is called Embracing Fitness as You Age, Maintaining a Healthy and Active Lifestyle Beyond 60. Francisco, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
All right. So tell us about this particular excerpt first, and then we'll broaden up and talk about the book.
Yes, I just wanted to share my experience with my own process of aging. Later this year, I'll be turning 65, and it has been an incredible last 20 years of maintaining that fitness level. And I just want to write this down to share with a lot of people, like my patient, my family, and to be sure that people know that there's some alternative to just accepting that as we age, we lose our abilities.
All right. So tell us about some of the tips that you're using to stay healthy and fit as you approach 65.
Yeah, I divided the book in several sections. The first one, I started with the attitude. I believe that it's just to have that youthful mentality, attitude. It's not to pretend that you're 20. It's just to maintain that capacity to dream, to maintain that outlook, positive outlook. And also, I always say that you have to have a purpose. And that can change from day to day. For me, my example, and I always give my example, recently for the last couple of years, I've been having grandkids after grandkids. So I have found a purpose because they look towards me. I did one of my physique, bodybuilding shows one time. I brought my 2-year-old and he was just mesmerized by the process and he looked at me. So when you have purpose, then it gives you the drive to look for how do you train? Why so important to maintain this level of fitness? The other thing that I talk in the book is that our society assign an attitude based on your age. They're constantly asking you, oh, how old are you? But you're supposed to behave this way.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to break those preconceived ideas. For example, when I go to the gym, oh, he's 60 and is doing lifting this much. I say, you know what? You should look at the 60 who's not lifting that much and say, that is the concern, not me. I should be the average. So we're trying to change that mentality, and it's happening. That's why I go in the book into this, especially with Hollywood now. Tom Cruise is doing his own stunts, and he's my same age. So instead of going into a retirement community and quitting, they're doing more and more outrageous things. And now it's not unusual to have an 80-year-old breaking world records for their age. So I think that one of the things that I always discuss in the book too is your mental strength. A couple of weeks ago, I ran a marathon in California, and I haven't run a marathon in a while. I said, well, I'm going to do it. I just want to do it. And to be honest with you, it was 90% the mind and 10% training. A lot of people were quitting much younger than me. And then I have an 87-year-old guy who finished the whole marathon. Again, and I don't think that he was better trained. I think he was in the status, I'm going to finish. So he had a purpose of doing it.
So tell me about setting that mindset. Like, how does one go about doing that? Is it something that they need to talk out with a coach or counselor? Is it something they sit down and just have that mindset? So what are some tips that you could do to share that mindset?
The way I approach that is trying to educate yourself. Like, for example, if I have a patient that's why I kind of put all my books on display, because then they are more comfortable talking about it, and they ask questions, and depending on how involved they are, they have a strong why they want to do it. Then we get into deeper and deeper ways of doing it, and everybody's different. We work very differently. Myself, my drive, I have to compete. I have to be showed, because if I don't do it, then I don't do it. Okay. So everybody has their own motivation. Like, for example, me, I go to the gym, I have to have a trainer. I will not do the same thing without the trainer that I do with the trainer. So if I want to excel, I have to have it. Yeah. So I don't see that as an expense. I see it as an investment in my health. But there are other people who are very methodical. They're dedicated. They can do it. They're very so we all have to identify our strength and our weakness. So again, I do believe, and maybe because of my medical education, to learn, to keep. To this point, I'm still learning new protocols in terms of, like, for example, before I thought There was more the heart rate, the blood pressure. Now it's the VO2 max.
Yeah.
That is more reliable for longevity than anything else. But all those things are changing constantly. And for example, when you go to the gym, the type of exercise you do, if you want to build muscle, you do more repetition. If you want to be stronger, then you cut down the repetition, increase the weight. So you have to be selective what you want to accomplish.
Okay, so now we have that mindset that we're talking about. What's the next step?
I think that one important point that I want to bring up is that we have to take away the mentality that when we get older we do cardio and that's it and that's it.
Yeah,
We have to change that mentality. We need to continue to lift weights. And
yeah,
when I talk to patients, I say, "Oh no, I'm too weak. I'm not gonna be lifting." My kids are telling me, "No, don't do that. You're gonna get hurt," which is so wrong. If you do it properly with the right technique, that is so crucial. And for me, that's so important because I saw my mother die from a fracture, my father died from a fracture, my grand in my home, in my house, there's tons of death due not to heart disease, just from fractures. And that was because they didn't believe at all in exercise. And they didn't see that, oh yeah, I'm active. I get in the car, I go to the restaurant, I come back to the house. That was their life. So and then some people say, well, you know what, that's life. But when you talk to them, they're not happy. They're
hmm
not happy because all of a sudden, again, I just want to give you an example. I had a veteran that he had a leg amputated. He's getting older, but I start telling him you need to start exercise because later on you're gonna need more energy because you're missing a leg. So he never listened to me. But now recently I saw him back 2 months in the hospital with pneumonia. And now he's complaining that he's so weak and he wants to be independent. And
hmm
now he said, "Doctor, I should have listened to you." So what I'm trying to do is let's not get to that stage. Let's just see the prevention.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with the gym and the various types of equipment, sometimes just lifting weights or strength training can be a little bit intimidating, right? Because
Correct.
sometimes things cardio, which is just running or going on a treadmill, I think it's a little bit more accessible. Now,
Exactly.
do you advise just going to a trainer and learning about some of these basic strength training techniques? Like, how does one get started for
So
those who aren't familiar with the gym?
that's an excellent question. So let me give you an example. When we had the pandemic, everything was shut down. Could not go to the gym. I depended on my trainer, so I was a little bit of a loss. I was not motivated to do it on my own. I didn't have that drive. But then I keep doing the research. What happened? They came out with a machine, tonal. You put it on the
Yeah.
wall. It's like having a trainer controls your resistance. Guys, you don't need to go to the gym. So I replaced that with that. Again, there's some money behind that, but my opinion, if you have the means and you have the desire, you definitely want to be educated. What I do with my patients that complain about the money, let's start with physical therapy. Let's just try to get a therapy that is in tune with the exercise, and we can start that way. And then later on, you want to join the gym with a trainer, fine. When you go, like for example, I'm being now recently, I've never went to any time to Planet Fitness, and oh my goodness, what that concept, they don't have big bodybuilder, it's very open to
Yeah.
regular people, all people there. They're coming with wheelchairs, with walkers,
hmm
and they have free classes. So, and a membership which is very minimal. So that will be an example of how to do it.
Yeah. And I do a lot of strength training myself, and even you don't even need a lot of equipment because there are a whole host of this body weight exercises that one can do to kind of help with that to get started too, right?
Absolutely. And again, when the people are trying to ask for, when they, I mean, in my world of pain, everybody has to come up with the same excuse. Oh, I have a pain. I gained the weight. I cannot
hmm
lose it. And I say, look, cardio is very inefficient for weight loss. We have to put that in their heads. You're not heavy because of the lack of exercise, because of what you're eating. So once you educate them about the inflammation, like I said, just because you're overweight doesn't mean that you're going to have more pain, but there is a lot of inflammation can cause more pain. So once you kind of explain to do a little bit the basic, they start understanding why to make choices in what they're eating, in terms of what they're eating. So I think it all goes together. The same thing. If you go to the blue zones with all these centenarians,
Yeah.
the common denominator, plant-based, a lot of education, a lot of interaction, social interaction, a lot of attitudes that they want to continue to be active, family, a lot of support. So all of that, if you look at all those zones are basically the same, common denominator.
Now, for those people who are approaching 65, like yourself, how many times a week do you recommend strength training?
The lifting, the strength training should be 3 times a week.
Okay.
And you can do it 45 minutes, a half an hour, depending on the intensity you give to your training.
Okay.
I always say that you can spend because I see them with the trainer, but they're socializing. They use the
Yeah.
trainer as a socializing, and you see them, they don't change. This month and month in the gym,
Yeah.
they look the same. It's because they go there and then they tell the doctor or the family, oh, I have a trainer. I go to the gym 3 times a well, but if you go there to socialize, it's not
Yeah.
the same. It happens
Uh,
a lot.
all right. So we talk about the mindset, we talk about the exercise and strength training. How about nutritional tips? What kind of nutritional tips can you
Again,
recommend?
all my recommendations are based on that blue zone because I'm into that type of trying
Yeah.
to reach that level, and it will 80% it should be plant-based.
Okay.
And you think that you're not gonna get enough protein. They have done the study comparing keto with plant-based, and plant-based by far surpasses the amount of protein in their diet. I always tell my patient, I give him an idea of things that are addicted, like the sugar, and also the sugars that are hidden, like in
Hmm.
the rice, the white rice, the potatoes, and all those things that they don't really get into it. So I try to my approach would be whole foods, basically.
Okay. Any supplements that you recommend?
I'm big with when my patients are looking into more blocking the inflammation, the turmeric. That's
Mhm.
great for me, vitamin D3, but I go a little bit higher dosage of the vitamin D3 with K2. But also the berberine. I really do believe that it makes a difference.
Okay. And what other recommendations do you have that your book focuses on?
Okay, one of the things that because I suffer from them, when you have an injury, the answer is not the concept of rise, elevate, immobilize is changing. We have seen that the more you activate those structures within the limit and
Hmm.
also with supervision, there is more potential for regeneration. So I think that mentality is changing. It hurts, I'm not going to use it. I think that we're seeing that now evolving. Like, for example, lateral epicondylitis. My treatment is resistive exercise, extension and flexion, versus injection of cortisone and immobilization with a brace. So I think that concept now that we're doing so much regenerative injections and therapies and like that, I think we can stimulate that with exercise. And also, yes, within the limit boundaries, but we need to force ourselves. You know what I always tell my kids when they tell good job and you're striking out and they give you a trophy, that's really not good job. And that's what we're doing with, oh, I walked the dog. Oh, good job. No, you didn't increase your heart rate. You didn't sweat.
Hmm.
You didn't do it at least for 15, 20 minutes. I cannot tell you good job. You're walking your dog every day. So I think we have to be more, again, the other concept that I have to say, we have that concept of overuse syndrome. I think we have more problem with the underuse syndrome. That's
Okay.
basically what I believe.
Now, for those people who are, like I said, approaching age 65 or over age 60, and there's just so many options that are out there in terms of getting healthy. You go on social media, you read the news, and have so many
Yeah.
people giving you advice. Tell me your approach in terms of getting started.
I think again, nutrition is critical here because you need to control the weight so you can build up more muscle. Okay, so we don't have competition between the fat and the muscle.
Yeah.
So that will be my first thing. You need to detoxify yourself. You need to kind of go back to your pantry and start getting rid of things that that are not going to be conducive to health. Once you have that mindset that you're trying to be healthier, then you have to have habits or routines. If you're a morning person, we know for a fact that when we exercise in the morning, regardless if you're a night person or a morning person, the benefits are higher.
Hmm.
So I always say, if you're a night person, I would recommend for you to force yourself to become a day person because we know. Also, what I included now, which keeps me focused, is meditation. I'm very type A personality. I cannot do meditation, but now I have been doing it for a year,
Hmm.
mandatory 30 minutes. Oh my goodness, every time. And then when I go to the gym, those workouts are even more powerful because I'm focused. The same thing about mindful eating. I try not to eat while I'm watching TV or driving because we all do that. It's just so convenient. And I guess I always said to everybody, I my genetics are lazy because
Hmm.
all my parents they just watch TV and eat. That's or to celebrate, go to the restaurant. There was no extra, no hiking. Now my celebration when I go, like for example, I was going to Napa Valley, but I want to go to Napa Valley, but I want to run a marathon. I want to make it worth my while.
We're down to Francisco Torres. He's an interventional physiatrist, and we're talking about his book, Embracing Fitness as You Age, Maintaining a Healthy and Active Lifestyle Beyond 60. Francisco, let's have some take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
I think that you're never too old to change. You always have a potential. There are people who started doing exercise and became high-end athlete when they were 60 or 70. That mentality is changing. So I think that get educated, try to look for all this amount of information, but narrow it down to what works for you.
Francisco, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks again for coming back on the show.
All right, thank you.